Right, so good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this session. We're absolutely thrilled to be here today. This is our first web archiving conference. So it's great to not only attend, but to present as well. So Leontien and I both work on the digital preservation team at Cambridge University Libraries, which is comprised of the University Library, which is the main research library of the university, as well as a growing list of faculty and departmental libraries. At the moment, I believe that's around 36 libraries in addition to the UL, so lots of libraries. So our presentation is about our work to scope how we could collect the university's web domain, which is a complex and ever-changing web space that provides information about central university administration, the faculties, departments, the many libraries, and many other areas of the university. So our presentation is going to cover our current web archiving activity at the libraries, the need to archive university-created content and why this has recently become more urgent. Challenges so far, our current workflow, and some use cases about how to capture content behind login screens. So the GIF that you see, or GIF, however you pronounce it, that you see on the screen here is a recent grab of the university website homepage. And as you can see, it's quite dynamic, lots of links to external content, especially to social media platforms. There's a YouTube video embedded right in the middle of the screen, and this is a common thing to feature on the homepage. This wasn't a special occasion or anything like that. And it's also designed to be more mobile friendly as we continue to experience and use the internet across a range of mobile devices. But the university website hasn't always looked like this. Let's go back in time a bit to 1997. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think I would apply to the university if the website still looked like this. So just thinking about our previous slide, there's quite a difference here in terms of the look, feel of the university web estate. And it's becoming more complex, again, as you saw on the previous slide. Lots of dynamic formats being used now, links to more content, especially external to the cam.ac.uk domain. And as you can probably imagine too, the university produces a lot of content for the web. So let's go back a bit further to the early 90s. Has anyone here heard of the Trojan Room coffee machine? No one? What? Oh, one person. Excellent. I'm sorry, there's no prize, but that's great. All right, so a little web history then. So the university has a rich history of science and technology, including inventions, thank you, Leontien, dating from the mid-20th century that underpin or have led to the internet that we still use today. So it's been the source of breakthroughs that impact the entire globe and entire populations of people, but also, a break room at the university. So the Trojan Room coffee machine is the world's first webcam. It was created in 1991 and then later moved online in 1993 when browsers gained the ability to display images. So it was built by researchers at the university's computer lab, so themselves and other researchers in the same building didn't have to get up from their desks to see if there was a fresh pot of coffee brewing. So yeah, quite creative and innovative. And they could instead check the live feed of the machine, which was still online until it was switched off in 2001. So we're interested in archiving the cam.ac.uk domain, not only for the content that's on these web pages, but also because of the rich history of design and how the university has presented itself as a leader in teaching, learning, and research throughout time and on the web. Right, so let's just go back to the present then. So these are just a few key points about how we arrived where we are currently and how we became involved in web archiving and what we currently do. So we're one of the UK legal deposit libraries that allow us to collect digitally published works, including content published on the web within the UK. And just to remind you what that is, content typically falls into these categories. So top level UK domains. Sorry, I'm doing a bad job here. Thank you. UK hosted within the UK, but have a non-recognizable UK domain, as well as published content outside the UK, but where there's a reason to capture it as well to ensure this national collection of archive websites is more comprehensive. So if the university is involved in a project with, say, a university in the States, we could make an appeal or an ask to capture that project website, for example, if it's hosted outside of the UK. Okay. So just going back to our timeline slide here, there's a large-scale digital presence program happening at the moment within the university that's redeveloping and redesigning the university web domain. And we know that that's going to lead to a loss of content. There's already an exercise going on called content rationalization, looking at content that's out of date, misleading, contributing to making the web space more fragmented. So although those are all really good reasons to redesign and redevelop the web estate, there is a pressing need to capture that content as well to ensure that there's a record of university activity. We're also 2 years into a 5-year digital preservation program. So just another reason why we're looking to preserve web content as well as other digital materials the libraries create themselves on site or collect through deposit or donation. And we're also a partner on the Archive of Tomorrow project. So you might have heard Leontien and Mark speak yesterday, as well as our colleague Shui at the Bodleian, about this project to archive health-related information online. And it also led to us hiring our first web archivist and restarting our local Cambridge Web Archive group. So that was really great too. But our other main driver here is to collect university web content for the university archives. So these are official records of the university that have been collected for hundreds of years, or the content exists for hundreds of years. And these are held at the university library. So the documents that inform what we collect are format agnostic, so we can apply this criteria to collecting all kinds of formats, including content published on the web. And just to give you some stats, these are provided by our University Information Services. So we think there's about 3,200 unique websites, over 2 million web pages, and over 1,300 web editors across the university. So these are people with kind of varying levels of skills and expertise who can edit content on this domain. And then before I pass you over to Leontien, just want to say, wait, there's likely more content that we could potentially be collecting. So research projects, project websites and web pages of the university, college websites who are kind of independent entities, but also part of the university, personal websites of academics or researchers, social media. So it's not just about the cam.ac.uk domain, it's much larger than we initially kind of thought out to consider. Right, take it away.
Woo. So just to quickly summarize what Caylin was talking about, and she already mentioned it on the previous slide as well, is that basically we want to prevent a black hole in the university archives because there's a mandate to collect this material. But it's getting more and more difficult and more complicated. So our main domain, our main website is cam.ac.uk, and all the departments used to be part of this domain by cam.ac.uk/say engineering. However, they've decided to make it into subdomains. So now we have engineering.cam.ac.uk, which means that the crawler doesn't pick it up. Fun. So basically, it's really difficult to understand the scope of the university, basically, because it's easy to trace back to departments and the colleges, but there's a whole bunch of projects, special departments that only exist for a small number of time, and other events or stuff that's run at the university that also sit within that subdomain. So yay. And then we've got an increase in like dynamic websites as well, which a lot of people have mentioned. So more and more websites have content that's embedded. So YouTube, Twitter feeds, that type of material. But also, as Caylin was mentioning as well, Cambridge has a rich history of trying stuff. So there's a whole bunch of like projects that have like these really cool dynamic websites that you can interact with, but we've no way of actually capturing them at the moment. And then on top of this as well, we currently feed into the UK Web Archive, which is great for the public-facing material, but some of this content is also out of scope. A lot of it's around like the intranet stuff that we have. So we have a lot of stuff behind login screens. And another example is that there's a number of projects that are run on an international basis and may have a website, say in America, hosted by an American university, which under the legislation does not fall under the UK Web Archive, but we would like to capture as it's part of the activity of the university. So yeah, loads of problems. So just to summarize again, like around the difficulties of capturing this domain, I mentioned the subdomains before. I just mentioned the intranet, so there's a whole bunch of intranet material available as well, and that's not in scope for legislation. And since a few months, the university has also introduced two-factor authentication, which means it's even more difficult to capture, because you could in the past give a number of crawlers a login and a password, which already ethically, I understand, has implications, but was technically doable, but not anymore. So yeah, and then on top of that, we also have a lot of social media pages, which we're currently also not capturing. So yeah, so we've tried. Basically, we've reached out to the university's information services department and asked them for a list, like a seed list of all the websites that they're familiar with. This does not include everything, as we quickly find out. There's a lot of departments that are not on here for some reason. This list is basically what they know exists that people have told them. So departments will come to them and say, hey, this is the engineering department stuff. Getting this list was also a pain because they thought for a really long time that I was a bot asking for information. I'm not. So eventually we got the list, and then it was down to me to like basically seed out everything that was either not active anymore or stuff that was like just linked to servers for certain stuff. And this amended list was then sent to our keeper of university archives, who did a really good job of basically selecting the stuff that was worth preserving. And then this list, this edited list, anything that could be added was added to ACT, which is basically the back end of the UK Web Archive. So a lot of our public-facing material is now part of the UK Web Archive, which is good. But the intranet, which is a bit of an issue. Basically, nearly every department at Cambridge has an intranet page. There's a lot of questions around like how to capture this and how to ethically capture this, because there's a lot of information there that we may not want to have. But we do have the keeper of the university archives to help with that kind of selection process, which is great. We're currently trying to find a tool to help with capturing. As I mentioned before, two-factor authentication is a problem, but we have two which have been actually quite successful, which I quickly want to mention. I know there's more out there, and if we had more time, I would love to try more tools, but these were the two that were successful for us, which is great. But they both have pros and cons, which I just want to mention. So Conifer, I say everyone here is familiar with Conifer. It's great because it's web-based. There's no need for downloading stuff. which again is a problem within the library because we have to go to IT and ask them nicely if they want to download stuff for us. So yeah, it's great. It's just browser-based and creates a work file. It's got a really easy interface, but it's very time-consuming. So we did a test on the internet that was set up for COVID-19 within the library, and it took us a few hours to do because you have to go through every page and every link and click on it, and then it's kind of difficult to keep track of to make sure you're not always sure if you've already captured that page or not. So yeah, it took a long time. But yeah, it does work, and it does get behind the two-factor authentication, which is great for us. The other new friend that I have is HT-Track, which is a website copier. It's mainly used more within like website design. So it's not as, I did see this morning that the French National Library uses it, which was really cool to see, but like 20 years ago, which also makes me a bit worried. But it was also one that is able to get behind the two-factor authentication. And it's because you can give it cookies. So basically, if you're in a browser and you're logged in, there's certain cookies that come with it. If you give these to HT-Track, it's able to work behind these internet pages for us, which is great, because it basically means that it can automatically capture it instead of going through every single page manually. It doesn't create a work file, so it's not necessarily ready for preservation. However, it is really easy to browse because it will just create a folder with all the HTML pages and all the images and like have it in that infrastructure that you would see on a server. So that's really good. But it does require a download, which again can be difficult within the library. But it works, which is good. So just to quickly summarize with the next steps. So we're going to continue this work and try to scope out this web content as much as possible. We've been talking to other departments as well. So there's a digital presence team at Cambridge, and Caylin mentioned them. They're the ones that are looking into redeveloping the website, and we want to talk to them and basically see if there's like ways to archive the material that's currently on the website, but also see what the future implementations of this are. We're also assessing what resources we need at the moment to be able to do this work. So it's very time consuming. Both Caylin and I are doing this as like an add-on. So web archiving falls under the digital preservation team, but there's no web archivist to do this work. So we do it as an add-on to our normal jobs, which I know is the case for a lot of institutions. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to mention, Caylin, but yeah, we're at the early stage, and if you've got any tips on like internet, please get in touch with us.
It was just to say too that we'll still continue to contribute to the UK Web Archive. It's really important for us to have this partnership and to contribute to the National Collection and also for our responsibilities as a legal deposit library. But right now we're just considering, do we need to have another solution as well to capture content for our university archives, and especially the stuff Leontien mentioned that isn't publicly accessible. Thank you.